Hey there, welcome to Bandage Banter, episode 5. I'm Sam. I've been in healthcare long enough to love it deeply, but to question it honestly. This is a space where we talk openly about healthcare, the parts we rush past, normalize, or just don't even say out loud. I am really glad that you are here. Let's go ahead and get into it. This week, we are going to start talking about something that almost everyone in healthcare recognizes immediately, even if they've never fully questioned it. And that's burnout. It is a word that shows up in break rooms, exit interviews, surveys, and leadership emails. It is the word that explains how so many of us feel. And today I want to talk about what burnout explains and what it never will. Because I want you to think about something. If burnout was truly the problem, wouldn't time off fix it? Let me know what you think. This is technically chapter 2 in my book, but I organize my writing more in parts and sections than neat chapters because this work does not happen in neat chapters. It happens in lived moments. So if you're wondering where we're at, that's why. If burnout has ever felt true to you, but also incomplete, this conversation is for you. Burnout explains pressure. It explains why you feel tired before your shift even starts. And not the tired like, oh my gosh, I didn't sleep well at all. It's the tired where your body already knows what the day is going to ask of you. And let's put you in a moment to kind of understand the feeling that I'm talking about. It is 6:52. You are not allowed to clock in yet. You're walking into work. Your coffee is in your nice thermos, thankfully still warm to drink. You've already got your badge on because it goes from car to your scrub top back to your car. You put your bag down, put your lunch away, and you glance at the assignment board. You scan the names, the room numbers, see who you have as your tech and who's your nurses working alongside you. You see the little written notes beside certain patients. And nothing looks catastrophic. Nothing looks unsafe on paper. But your stomach is like, oh man, should I say, your body already knows this shift is going to require focus the entire time. Burnout explains that feeling. You're 10 minutes into report. You're already mentally rearranging priorities. You're not panicking. You're planning. And you're deciding what can wait and also what cannot wait while also asking yourself what is going to require the most vigilance. And then imagine you're almost done, but someone interrupts your report to ask a question. And just as you're finishing up with that, the phone rings, it's lab, and they have a critical result for you. You feel like a flash of irritation, and it kind of surprises you. And it's not because the interruptions were unreasonable. It's not because the question was wrong or something silly to ask. It's because you were already at capacity before the shift even started. Burnout explains that. It explains that fog. Oh my gosh, like the midday fog where you're halfway through your shift and you're just like, man, I'm still like functioning, still competent, I'm still moving, but everything just seems to take so much more energy. It explains the irritability that feels out of proportion, the emotional flattening that creeps in quietly, that jaded side. That moment at the end of the day when somebody asks you, how was your day? And you just truly don't know how to answer because you didn't have a bad shift, but you didn't have a good one either. You just feel meh, empty. Burnout gives language to what pressure feels like inside your body and your mind. And that matters because without language, most of us land on the same conclusion. It must be me. I should be handling this better. I'm looking around and everybody else is fine. Maybe I'm not as resilient as I thought I was or that I used to be. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to fix myself. I'm going to start taking those classes, going to those trainings. I'm going to do all the self-care, setting boundaries, and time management things that I can possibly do. We tell ourselves we just need to get through this stretch. Burnout explains that feeling. But that is where it stops being enough. Burnout explains how pressure feels. It does not explain why pressure never lets up. Remember that question I asked you earlier about if we took time off and we were burnout, wouldn't that fix it? Well, let's talk about how that pressure shows up. It's after a shift. You're driving home, or maybe you're brushing your teeth, and the day is just quietly replaying in your head, even if you don't want it to. It's still just calculating there, like an AOL sign. And you think about the thing you almost missed, or like the thing that you caught before something bad happened. And you think about the task that you rushed, like, oh, I wish I would have had just a few more minutes with them. The moment that you chose speed over thoroughness, and asking yourself why the shift, and instead of asking yourself why the shift was structured that way, you tell yourself, ugh, I should have handled that better. I used to be sharper than that. Other people are managing this. I can do it too. Burnout explains the emotion. It does not explain why even good shifts feel tight. We've talked about this compression before. And you know the ones like the shifts where there's no emergencies, no disasters, and everyone is technically okay. And yet when you clock out, you still feel wrung out. Burnout does not explain why doing your job well requires constant vigilance, why you cannot fully settle into the work, why your brain is always scanning, tracking, anticipating. Burnout does not explain why recovery never quite catches up. That is where we have to stop looking inward and start looking outward. At design, healthcare treats efficiency as neutral. It sounds reasonable, responsible, necessary. It's like the structure. Efficiency, it doesn't feel like a policy. It feels like a tone, like you're setting the tone for the day. We're going to be efficient today. It's that background hum that says, you're not moving fast enough. Oh, you can't stop. Keep going. Even when no one's actively rushing you, but you're rushing yourself. Efficiency rarely knocks and says, hey, I'm here. And kind of cruises on in. And through words that you hear every day. Flow, throughput, utilization, heck, even timeliness. Those are all appropriate things. Because, I mean, none of the words, they don't sound dangerous, but together, they reorganize your work before you even look at a patient. Let's make this concrete. Putting you back in your shoes. It's 7:15. You have just finished getting a report. I'd say that's good timing. You already know one patient is unstable. Another one is supposed to be discharged by 10. While you're opening charts, reviewing labs, looking at orders, a message from case management pops up. Pharmacy sends you a message about another medication, about how you have to let them know when you need it because it's a timely medication that they have to send up and mix. You haven't even assessed anyone yet. Nothing's technically wrong, but your body already knows this shift is tight. No one's told you to move faster. No one has said that you're behind, but the structure is already set. That is efficiency. You feel efficiency when the schedule's full with no margin. Admissions and discharges are overlapping, and there's no pause in between them. Before you even had the patient discharged, there was an ED admit that was going to be coming up, and they don't do report anymore. The documentation is growing, but guess what isn't? The time. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it 1 billion, million, trillion times else. Where when you have 5 minutes, There's no way to stretch it. That is just what it is. It is 5 minutes. And not better 5 minutes, not optimized 5 minutes. And the same goes for your 12-hour shift inside of a 24-hour operating facility. You cannot fit more into it, no matter how competent you are. Here is another moment you might recognize. It's 10:30. You have a discharge, and you admit, and medications due. You look at the clock, you do the math. You decide it's better to do a quicker assessment on one patient right now, so you technically buy yourself time later on. Not because it's ideal, because it feels necessary. That is the quiet compromise. No one sees it. No metrics capture it. But guess what does? Your body captures it. Your shoulders are tight. You haven't even eaten yet. The last time that you had something to eat was on the drive to work, and that was at 6:30. It's been 4 hours and you've been running around. You've burned some calories off. You're holding multiple timelines and things in your head. The interruptions keep coming. You're not angry. You feel like you're getting faster, or maybe you are getting faster because you feel like there's a fire on your rear end. That's not resilience. That's compression. And that is the part that can start messing with your head, because you can't point to a single failure. No one yelled. No policy was broken. No emergency happened. So when you feel overwhelmed, you quietly decide it must be you. And under efficiency, the questions just change. Instead of asking what conditions support safe judgment, the system asks how fast can tasks be completed? You hear it at the end of your shift. Did you do your CHG wipe downs? Oh, did everybody complete their Foley bundles? Did everyone get their charting done? And we say yes, because technically we did. But what we didn't measure into that calculation was, what did we shorten? What did we skip explaining? What did we carry instead of documenting? The question was not about judgment. It was about completion. Efficiency looks outcome focused, but it is controlled with inputs. Efficiency decides how much time you have, how much attention is allowed, how much slack exists, if any at all, before you ever assess a patient. I'm going to slow a little down here, because when we're talking about margin, it's one of those words that sounds optional if you've never worked inside of it. Margin is not extra time. It's not padding. It's not efficiency. Margin is the moment where you stop and think, wait a minute, something's off. It's the pause where your brain has just enough time, just enough room to notice that a patient's tone has changed, or their breathing looks a little different than it did an hour ago. It is a space where you ask one more question instead of moving on to the next task. Most of the time, you do not even realize margin is gone until it's, well, gone. Let me give you maybe a moment that can make this realistic. You're halfway through your shift, you're moving room to room, task to task, and you kind of feel like this little, something's got my little nursey senses is like, there's something going on. Nothing dramatic and nothing that you can immediately name, just a sense that you want to sit for another minute, look again, maybe ask one more question. But you don't, because you already know what is waiting outside that room. You know there's meds due. You know someone's waiting to be discharged. You know another patient is just about to arrive. And you know that potential little area could cost you another 30 minutes staying late. So you tell yourself, I'll come back. I'm going to circle back to this. That is margin disappearing. And of course, we're doing it appropriately. We're not dismissing someone having stroke symptoms. It's not loud, it's not catastrophic, it's quietly. Just those little things where we could have stayed the extra moment, but we know those compound. And when margin disappears, variability doesn't. Patients don't become predictable. Bodies definitely do not become simpler, and care does not become linear. Variability has to go somewhere, and it moves. In healthcare, variability moves on to people. It moves into your head, into your body, into your nervous system. I guess what I'm saying is, you become the buffer. You remember the lab results instead of writing them down because there's no time to chart, and you don't even really have anywhere to write it down. You know in the back of your head who's a little bit more fragile of all of your patients, even though there's nothing on the board to reflect that. You notice small changes and carry them silently because there's no obvious place to put them. You hold risk in your mind all day. You leave work tired, but not in the way that people expect. Not because you were lifting all day or not because the shift was chaotic. Those things definitely and do happen. But more importantly, because you were consistently thinking, tracking, anticipating, recalculating. Your brain never stood down. And that's important because the system does not see that work. It does not show up in metrics, does not appear in reports, does not register as labor. Work continues not because the system is resilient, but because the people are compensating continuously for its limits. That compensation is invisible until it's not. Because none of this is named, the cost feels personal. When you do go home exhausted, you don't say, the system is structured to offload variability onto human cognition. You say, I am just burned out. You don't say, the design requires constant vigilance. Instead, you say, I must be losing my edge. You don't say, there's no margin for me to think safely. You say, I used to be better at this. Burnout becomes the big band-aid that just makes sense of your exhaustion. It feels compassionate, feels validating, but it quietly shifts the responsibility back onto you. Burnout explains how bad it feels without ever asking why feeling bad is required for the system to function. That is why it sticks. And this is where it becomes dangerous because most of the time, nothing goes wrong. The charts close, patients are alive, and the metrics look fine. From the outside, everything worked. And because the outcome appear acceptable, the system assumes the design is sound. What it never sees is the internal recalculation required to make that true. It never sees where you deferred, where you shortened, or what you shortened, and what you carried instead of documenting. Efficiency, it does not ask what was absorbed. It only asks whether the task was finished. And as long as tasks are finished, the system reads that as proof. Efficiency keeps winning because it produces numbers. Numbers feel solid. They feel objective. They feel like evidence. Burnout once served as a way to contain distress because it named how people felt. Efficiency replaced that function by governing how work is designed. It narrows the field of acceptable questions. Instead of asking, is this sustainable? The question becomes, did it work today? And when it works today, the design is left intact and it becomes the new process for tomorrow. At this point, burnout is not revealing anything new. The mechanism is visible. We know what looks like resilience is just really compensation and not the kind that you want. And you know this. What looks like capacity is actually cost. And that's your cost. Efficiency narrows where judgment can safely operate. And not by removing care, but by compressing the conditions under which care can be exercised. This is the kind of conversation I plan to keep having here, and I really value hearing what resonates or what you've lived through too. Next week, we are going to be talking about what happens when metrics replace judgment. I just want to say thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I hope this has helped you notice something that maybe you've been carrying, and I want you to realize that it was not just you. Thanks so much for tuning in to Bandage Banter. I really enjoyed our time together, and I hope it felt like time well spent. Be gentle with yourself. Have a lovely week. Toodles. Mwah.